Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. I was just watching President Trump in Michigan, and I was waiting for the president to finish his speech in Michigan to start today's program, and it was a great speech. It was really a rally, and it's really amazing what President Trump has done. When it comes to manufacturing, he's brought all this manufacturing back to the United States. Detroit, Michigan was a city that was really like Escape from New York. It was completely abandoned. Like if they did a sequel to Escape from New York a couple years ago, they could have filmed it in Detroit all day, all night. It'd be totally abandoned, and he's brought auto manufacturing back. And our other presidents, even the Republicans before Trump, they sent our auto manufacturing to Canada, to Mexico, to all over the world. And those are high-paying jobs that were multi-generational family lines of careers. And he's brought these things back. Like in the Big Beautiful Bill, as an example, right? You can now deduct the interest payments on your auto loan on cars that are manufactured in the United States. Now, that doesn't mean just General Motors. If you have like a Hyundai or BMW that's assembled in the United States, or a Lexus or Toyota that's assembled in the United States, you still get that benefit. But those are still American workers that are working in those Toyota plants, Honda plants, whatever, BMW plants in the United States that are putting the cars together too. I mean, think about that. Those of you that are homeowners, the mortgage on your interest, you get to, on your mortgage interest, you get to deduct from your taxes, but the auto loans you don't. And President Trump, he's done so much to help people that never get tax breaks. He's brought back the auto manufacturing. It's amazing. And one thing that is also amazing is what I'm going to share with you here from CNN. There's a new poll on CNN that they just dropped today, and if you follow the mainstream media, well, not even just the mainstream media, if you follow the media in general, mainstream or not, you would be led to believe that the major combat operation we're involved in now, this air campaign that's been going on for 5 months with Iran, is unpopular. And of course, President Trump did not start this war. It started 50 years ago. He's finishing America's longest war. But you would think that the entire country had turned against President Trump over Iran. And I had a poll last week that showed that's not true among Republicans. But look at this. This is a CNN poll that just dropped today.
Are quite surprising. Trust Dems or Republicans on Iran. According to CNBC earlier this month, you'd think, okay, that's one poll. The Republicans trust by 2 points. But then CBS News comes out yesterday, and what do you see? You see the exact same thing. Trump and the Republicans take the cake. They are trusted by 2 points on Iran. Now, one poll is one thing, but you put the two of them together, and you can see that the American people, simply put, are not buying what Democrats are selling on Iran. They still trust Republicans more, even if you look at President Trump's approval ratings on the subject. And they're negative too, but yet Republicans and Trump still more trusted than Democrats are in Iran.
Has there been any change over time?
No, and this is even more surprising, right? You might think, okay, as the war has gone on and on and on, you might think, hey, the Democrats would be gaining ground in terms of trust that the American people would give them on Iran. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Trust Democrats or Republicans more in Iran. In April, according to a Washington Post Ipsos poll, the Democrats were more trusted by 2 points. Again, close margin, no clear leader. But look where the shift has been. If anything, the shift has been in the Republican.
So Trump's up 2 points on Americans trusting Trump on Iran. And so that's a 4-point gain because the Democrats were ahead by 2. Now Trump's up by 2.
Direction. Now the Republicans and Donald Trump are trusted more by 2 points on Iran. So again, over the course of the war, if anything, the Republicans have been the ones that have been gaining ground, which I think just goes so opposed to all of the news coverage that we have seen so far, and all of the media. You would think, hey, but no, the American people are actually trusting the Republicans and Trump, if anything, more now than they were, let's say, halfway through the war.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And not only that, what President Trump is doing in with Iran, if you notice, there's relative outside of the Iran operation. Okay, I'm of course subtracting Iran from that, But if you look overall, there's peace in the Middle East, right? He ended this Gaza war, and we have all these allies now, right? Syria. Can you believe Syria is like an ally of the United States now? Iraq is an ally of the United. All these Muslim nations are part of Trump's coalition, and all of them hate Iran, and they've been bullied by Iran. Iran's been responsible for all the Mideast disasters that have been going on. Liberals like to blame Israel. It's not Israel. The problem's always been Iran. And President Trump is eliminating that factor. And you can tell that the rest of the Middle East, all these Islamic nations, are all excited, very jazzed up that Iran is not going to be around to harass them. And I know a lot of these anti-Semites and liberals and Trump haters like to say that Israel controls Trump, Netanyahu controls Trump. Netanyahu came to the United States today for Lindsey Graham's funeral. They're going to have two ceremonies. One's tomorrow, and then I think is that going to be the national one, or is it going to be the one the day? I'm not sure which. One's for the country and one is for the family. But President Trump was on Air Force One on the way to Michigan today.
It would be money that would actually indirectly come to us. So we got a lot of interesting things going, but our country is the strongest we've ever been. It's the hottest country anywhere in the world. And frankly, we're being very nice to a lot of countries that would not survive without us. And you know who wouldn't survive without us? Israel. Bibi's coming, he'll tell you. If I didn't get involved and if I didn't blow up those nuclear, essentially soon-to-be nuclear weapons, the dust, as I call it, Israel would have been terminated months ago and years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So we have Mideast peace. I know they don't. It doesn't seem that way because we're fighting Iran, but we have Mideast peace going on. Iran is barely hanging in there. They're hardly a country anymore, right? And when he's done with them, Iran will no longer be they'll no longer be a factor. So everything is going as well as it possibly could, and I know everyone's excited. There's a lot of, by the way, welcome to the program. You're listening to The Brian Craig Show, which is available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, okay? If you want to catch the program live in video form, that's on YouTube. Just search for The Brian Craig Show on YouTube. And the program is available on all podcast platforms as well, all right? And, of course, on YouTube, you can catch me live every morning of the week, 7 days a week, and during the week, most afternoons as well. And anytime I'm in the studio live, you can call me, and I do take live calls. So just great times. I mean, we are in literally, it's 2026. We're in the roaring 20s, and we really are. And it's a great time because America is back. Now, Benny Johnson today had James Woods on, and I love James Woods. You guys, what's your favorite James Woods movie? He's good in everything, James Woods, isn't he? I mean, it's hard to pick. What's your favorite James Woods movie? And I remember when I was a kid, he scared the crap out of me, James Woods. I remember when I was a kid, I saw him. I don't know why I watched this movie as a kid, because it's not a kid's movie. But Once Upon a Time in America, and I was like terrified of James Woods. He was a scary guy, and he's one of the greatest American actors who's ever lived. There's no doubt about it. And a few years ago, we found out he's a conservative. He's Uber. Yeah, Uber. He probably takes Uber, but he's MAGA. I don't know why I said Uber. It's been a long day. But he's MAGA. And he was on Benny Johnson today, and he was talking about John Thune in particular and the Save America Act. This is James Woods on with Benny Johnson today, who interviewed him.
Well, John Thune, my message is, who owns you?
Isn't that the question? Who owns you, John Thune? James Woods is smart, too, isn't he?
Who owns you? Because you're not doing anything for the United States. What do you think? I mean, obviously, who wants the Save America Act? This is a trick question, by the way.
Everyone.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. It's something like 82% of Republicans and 75% of Democrats. You know,
Yes.
I was a Democrat for decades because I grew up in New England. Was kind of a Kennedy Democrat. We knew the Kennedys had their flaws, but John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, they really believed in, a genuine great society. They believed in overturning all these horrible the Jim Crow laws, and they did a lot for America in a good way. And then, of course, people took the great society and turned it into a grift.
That's right.
They're always going to do that. They're always going to end up, well, how can we make money on it? I mean, people never talk about this because people just don't understand it, so politicians don't talk about it. The fact that we have a $38 trillion deficit is going to end up being one of the most catastrophic engines of
just to sum this up, so he's asking John Thune, who owns you, and what he goes on to talk to Benny Johnson about. You can watch the whole thing if you want. I did retweet this this big chunk of the interview that Benny did, but he goes on to say this is how John Thune's going to go out in the Senate. John Thune, we've had a lot of bad Republicans over the years, right? We really have. We've had not only a lot of bad Republicans, more specifically, we've had some bad senators. But I think it's safe to say, and you can agree or disagree with this, but I think John Thune is the worst that I can think of. The worst Republican senator ever. Because it's like James Wood said, right? We've got this incredibly popular legislation, the Save America Act. And the Save America Act is the perfect name for it because most of the problems that we have in this country will be solved when the Save America Act is fully in place. And again, it'll take a couple of election cycles probably for that to happen. I talk about that. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be a switch because there's going to be a lot of resistance from these corrupt local officials throughout the country when it first goes into effect. But most everything, if the Save America Act was in place, if the Republicans would have passed that in the 70s or the 80s, abortion would have been outlawed, right? It would have been outlawed in the 70s or 80s whenever it was in effect. How many Democrats would never have been elected? I think it is very safe to say that 30%, maybe even by higher, 30% of the Democrats in the Congress wouldn't be elected if it weren't for the Save America Act. And James Woods asked the question, John Thune, who owns you? And they must be paying him well because he's gonna go down with mud. His name is Mud, right? I mean, he is the absolute worst senator. Now, again, we've had bad senators, but what makes him the worst is that, well, first off, this is the most important legislation that's come across in my lifetime, no doubt about it, right? And it's not just that he's opposed to it, because there's always been rhinos, and remember, rhinos are Democrats, but he's the leader in the Senate, and he's held it up when we've got the votes to pass it. Oh, they dropped a new picture of, speaking of senators, of Mitch McConnell today with his Chinese handler, his wife, Elaine Chao. It looks like the same picture to me with a different shirt on. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And he's got his shirt on. I wonder what he's got on beneath the shirt. He's probably sitting there naked below the shirt. Anyway, I'll take some calls. If you'd like to call in, the number's toll free, 888-465-2631. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Richie. Brian, I'm listening to you. Sometimes you even get me crazy, okay? You said, who's the worst senator that you know? And did you say Thune?
Well, there's been a lot of bad senators, but yeah, he's very bad, Thune.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you never I've never heard you, not one time since I've been listening to you, ever go against President Trump. And I will vote for President Trump over anybody right now.
Absolutely.
But I am objective about certain things, and I don't want to turn voters off or anything like that. But I can remember when John Thune was running, Rick Scott was going, and who do you think endorsed John Thune?
Yeah, President
Trump
Trump
did. Put him over
did.
the finish line.
Yeah, hold on, Richie. I answer all the lines that are coming in. Yeah, Trump. Well, Richie, come on. Hold on a second here. You know, people get married and they end up divorced because somebody screwed them over. You don't know someone is going to betray you until they do.
Oh my God! The writing was on the wall. People.
Oh, there'd be there would be no divorces if that was the case.
Let me ask you a question. If somebody told you, and you were a single guy, that the girl you want to marry is a hooker on U.S. 1, everybody's coming to you, and with you're laughing, and everyone's coming to you, and you're so in love, you say, no, as long as she don't screw me over, and then you get married and she screws you over, you didn't listen to anybody.
That's such I do not understand that analogy at all.
I know.
Like the example I always use is Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold was one of President Washington's best friends, right? He was one of some say he was George Washington's best friend, and his name means traitor and betrayal. All right, hey, Richie, I appreciate the call. Richie's always trying to get me to criticize Trump. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. All right, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is Sean from Massachusetts.
Hey, Sean.
Well, first of all, James Woods is a genius. I think he actually has a certifiable IQ of a genius, his rank, and it's common sense, too.
Yes.
Not only is it intellect, but it's just common sense. What he said is it's just right out there. And, John Thune should be ashamed of himself. He is, you are right, he is the worst, because he's supposed to be the shining example in the Senate. And he's not doing his job. Donald Trump did everything.
Well, I wouldn't say that. He's doing his job, but his job is not it depends on who he's working for, right? So, someone is backing him to. He's doing in the Senate what Pam Bondi was doing in the Justice Department. He's stopping the progress of these important things.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. He's not doing the right job. I mean, the job that we want, the American people want him to do, what Donald Trump wants him to do. I mean, Donald Trump did everything for him. He's been good to him. He's done everything for him. He's been there by his side.
But he's a traitor. There's no doubt he's a traitor.
He is. And you know what? These guys, James Woods just said it so perfectly.
Who's paying you?
Who's
paying you?
Who is paying you?
That's right.
I love that because.
That was in fact. I would hold on. The phones are ringing off the hook here. Yeah, I thought that was the. Are you back with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was the perfect question. Who's paying you, John Thune?
Oh, yeah.
Not the American people. The American people. That's just that's just the cigar money.
Oh yeah, they're definitely. The way he stalls. I mean, the body language. John Thune. Every time I get up, when he gets up there, he looks so. You don't even have to be a body reading expert.
He's a snake.
Know, just by the way, look how he twitches and look how he gets up there. He's
exactly.
Over. His voice. He's trembling. I mean, he knows.
I mean, what James Woods said too. Over 80% of Republicans support the Save America Act. Over 70% of Democrats support the Save America Act. So who's he up there representing? Hey, I appreciate the call, man. Sean from Massachusetts. Great call. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mike from Louisiana.
Hey, Mike. What's up?
John Thune needs to go away. He needs to be done something with. And by the way,
he needs to just be taken out of the leadership position. That's what we want. I appreciate the call. When we get he's not up for election, so we can't do anything about that. But we can make somebody else the majority leader, right? Like Rick Scott. But yeah, absolutely. Now, if you'd like to call in and you're watching live, you can call me if you're watching live. And if you're watching on YouTube, the number is pinned in the live chat, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. 2631. But, this is, something we've dealt with before. Remember, Trump wasn't even in office. During the Autopin administration, he changed Speakers of the House, and the same thing is going to happen. John Thune will not be the majority leader in January. That's when the new Congress comes in, and that will be taken from him. Now, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, President Trump made that joke about Caitlin Collins looking like the Bud Light, the guy that destroyed Bud Light. And, that was very funny, Dylan Mulvaney. And that was very funny. And you know why it was funny? Because she does look like Dylan Mulvaney. I never thought about it before, but they do look alike. And Dylan Mulvaney, who destroyed Bud Light, made a video about the president today and this whole thing. I'll play some of it, but I haven't seen Dylan Mulvaney in a while. The thing with Bud Light, very few guys will drink Bud Light. I mean, come on. Would you order a Bud Light? Would you go to the grocery store or a gas station convenience store and walk out with a 6-pack or a 12-pack of Bud Light? Nah. If you walk out with Bud Light or you order Bud Light, very few guys are going to do that. Why? Because everyone's going to think you're gay if you order Bud Light, and guys don't want to be thought of that way unless they're gay, and then even some of them don't. But the executive who brought in Dylan Mulvaney to represent Bud Light destroyed a great American beer, and I don't know if it's ever going to be able to be repaired. The thing with Bud Light is, while it's never been my favorite, I like to drink beer. It was one of the best beers on a hot day. And we got a lot of those in Florida, right, during the summertime. It was a great hot beer. It was a great cold beer on a hot day beer. It didn't have a lot of taste to it. It doesn't really, it's not just a light beer. It almost tastes like water sometimes. But I'll tell you, on a hot Florida day, I can remember many a time mowing the lawn and grabbing a Bud Light. That's not happening anymore. Well, I don't mow the lawn anymore, but but if I was, when I did mow the lawn, I'd grab a Bud Light sometime. No more. Even Budweiser, people are a little reluctant to get the Budweiser. It's I've never seen such a destruction. I mean, the devastation to the Bud Light brand was more devastating than when Jared from Subway got arrested and went to prison for all those charges, with the teenage girl and all that stuff. Which do you think, which brand was damaged more? Jared from Subway or Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light? Which one do you think damaged the brand more? But Dylan Mulvaney made a video today responding to all this controversy because they're very excited. They're being talked about.
Hi, is this a good time? Well, it's definitely an interesting time because my name is Dylan Mulvaney, and the President of the United States said my name in his speech 4 times on Friday night.
Now, first off, I haven't paid much attention to Dylan Mulvaney ever, and I'm surprised that Dylan Mulvaney still goes by Dylan. But when self-important, non-important people, when they get injected into the news cycle, they get all excited. And Dylan Mulvaney is so excited that President Trump mentioned their name 4 times.
I couldn't respond right away because yesterday I had tickets to see Meg Stalter and O'Mary. But now I think I'd like to say a little something.
Okay. What was that?
Firstly, I would like to congratulate CNN's Caitlin Collins on her award and tell her that I'm incredibly honored to be compared to her in any way. And I hope that she keeps doing all the great work.
Yeah, but Caitlin Collins is not excited to be compared to you. It may be a compliment. It's a compliment for Dylan Mulvaney because Caitlin Collins is a woman. Comparing Caitlin Collins to Dylan Mulvaney is not a compliment for Caitlin Collins, and you could tell she didn't take it as such.
Now, the president also brought up a video I did over 3 years ago. And mind you, I've been kind of flying under the radar, keeping up a pretty low profile, just like doing my little musicals, singing, dancing. And yet I am still his topic of conversation all these years later. And it seems to me that I might be like the one that got away for these men. Like I am permanently burned into their retinas. I am microchipped into their minds. And,
no, it wasn't. He wasn't talking about you. He made a joke about Caitlin Collins and used you for the punchline. That's not the same as being, and believe me, President Trump is not interested Dylan Mulvaney in that kind of way. Oh my goodness.
When I first heard that the president put me on his diss track, I was like, well, that's not good. Then a few weeks ago, I would have probably been more upset about this. But luckily, I was ghosted last month by a hookup who I really liked. And what I realized from that experience...
A hookup. I was ghosted by a hookup. Was it before or after the hookup, I wonder?
Was that I shouldn't want to be with someone who doesn't really want to be with me. So maybe I shouldn't want to be professionally supported by an administration that doesn't personally support me or so many others in this country. Food for thought. In fact, maybe being publicly mocked and criticized by this administration is actually like the greatest compliment of all, because it puts me in the company of some of like the most brilliant, empathetic people in our world today. But I do still wonder, like, why is it so important to them that I don't find success? Like,
okay, now first off, it had nothing to do with Dylan Mulvaney, that whole joke. But Dylan Mulvaney here, you're talking about success and everything else. President Trump just gave her another 15 minutes here, or at least maybe 7.5 minutes or something, right? Because Dylan Mulvaney's been out of the mix for a long time, and now they're back.
What is it that I have that they don't? Oh my God, freedom. I am free in a way that they will never have the privilege to experience, and they want to use their power to take away my freedom. But what they don't understand is that my freedom has like zero contingency on what they can provide for me, because my freedom is fully dependent on the moment that I acknowledged my real authentic self in every day since. And sharing that with the world, it's just icing on the cake. But they don't want me to be able to share that, because it would mean young people realizing that if someone like me can be themselves and find success and freedom, then they can find success and freedom for themselves too. So now I have some action items for us.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready? Number 1, support trans and non-binary people. This is the time. I am sounding the alarm. We need you to stand up for us, vote for us, donate to our causes, hire us, and support the businesses who hire us. But most importantly, love us. That is what we need more than anything right now, publicly and proudly. Number 2, if a young person is seeking acceptance, we are going to love them. And if you are a young person watching this, I need you to hold on to every piece of yourself.
Yeah, including your penis. Keep hold on to that. Don't let them take it, okay? Or if you're female,
Because especially the parts that they are trying to make you feel guilty about or trying to scare you into abandoning. And I need you to find people who will help you carry those pieces into a kinder day. Okay? Okay. And number 3, when they try to judge you for your support of us, take that as the greatest compliment. Ladies, when they tell you that you look like a trans woman, wear it like a medal. Men, when they tell you that being attracted to trans women makes you gay, I want you to Hillary Duff PSA their ass so hard that they don't even know what just happened.
I don't even know what that means. I can't speak all this trans millennial verbiage. President Trump, MAGA, and conservatives are not trying to do anything to limit transgendered people's rights or gay people's rights, okay? Let's get that right out of out the box. The only controversy is when transgender men make their way into sports. And most of these instances, when transgendered people have made it into sports, they're cheaters. They can't make it on the boys' team, right? So they play with the girls, and then all of a sudden they're number 1 athlete in the world in the sport, and it's mostly cheaters. In fact, what most of these transgender men that go into the women's sports are doing is disrespecting Dylan Mulvaney and transgendered people, but they're so hooked up in their activist world, that they don't see the light of it. And so far as young people, having transgender surgery is a life-altering surgery that is not reversible. And before someone goes through an irreversible surgery of that level, they need to be a certain age. I don't think anyone should be doing it that's under 30, 35, or even 40, quite frankly. I know a lot of people that are in their 20s and 30s, they don't understand that. You're really not an adult. You're really not a mature adult until you're 35 or 40. And you're still, when you're under 35 or 40, you're still can fall victim to trends and celebrities and all that stuff, and really until you're 50, really. But it's just not. It's too life-changing. Children shouldn't be having such life-changing surgeries. But anyway, I thought I'd share that. But Dylan Mulvaney is back on the scene again. It was a funny joke, but nobody really cares about Dylan Mulvaney, although they think that everybody does. All right, if you're on hold, hang in there. I'm going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. If you'd like to call in, the number is toll-free, 888-465-2631, 888-465-2631. We'll be right back. On the line, we have Bruce. Bruce is a client of Jupiter Joe Thomas. He heard me talking with Joe Thomas about annuities and what a great deal they are, and he went in with his wife, and now he's a client. Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian.
So tell me about your experience with Jupiter Joe Thomas.
A fine gentleman. We sat down with Joe, and we explained everything to him, and we brought all our information, and he worked everything out great.
The cool thing about annuities is your money's never at risk. You're guaranteed a revenue stream for the rest of your life, but there's a bonus, really a signing bonus, where you can make a boatload of money before you even leave Joe Thomas's office. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bruce?
Well, that's where I was surprised when we sat down. We talked about the bonuses, and to my amazement, it was 10%, and there was even another one that's bigger.
Wow, that's amazing. So you made 10% on your money before you even got back in your car.
Yeah, it was more than that, but it was great.
Listen, guys, do what Bruce did. Give Jupiter Joe Thomas a call. You can set up a free consultation either on the phone or in the office, and Joe Thomas will put together a custom proposal just for you. His number is 561-743-0999. 561-743-0999. And online at jupiterjoe.com. All right, Bruce, thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Our world is filled with confusion, deception, and uncertainty. Where can you turn for the truth? Bible Prophecy and Truth is a Christ-centered ministry dedicated to proclaiming the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and shining the light of God's Word into a world darkened by deception. Discover powerful videos that explain what the Bible says about salvation and what you must do to be saved. Explore fascinating teachings on Bible prophecy, the rapture. There's also an in-depth creation versus evolution study that will strengthen your faith and deepen your understanding of Scripture. And that's just the beginning. Whether you're a lifelong believer, a new Christian, or simply searching for answers, Bible Prophecy and Truth offers biblical teaching rooted in God's truth. Visit videos.prophecyandtruth.com. That's videos.prophecyandtruth.com and discover the truth, strengthen your faith, and grow closer to Jesus Christ. Videos.prophecyandtruth.com.
All right, we're back. I just want to remind you guys, that was a great endorsement from Bruce in regards to Jupiter Joe Thomas, and he said that he got the bonus. There's a 10% on your money on day one annuity, and you heard Bruce say it was a lot more than that. Well, there's an annuity where you get a 15% bonus on your money on day one. It's pretty awesome. So call Joe Thomas, no matter where you're located, and schedule that no-charge consultation. 561-743-0999. 561-743-0999. And you can also find his number on his website, jupiterjoe.com. Now, I saw on X, I didn't even know this was happening. ICE was running an operation in my area. Yeah, ICE was on a 4-day surge in Palm Beach County. They arrested hundreds of illegals, including the owner of a bakery. The operation is believed to be the largest in Palm Beach since January of last year. Now, a couple things about this. Palm Beach County, that's where I live. It's where the president lives. It's where Mar-a-Lago is located. And that's a pretty awesome thing, right, that ICE was in our community. I didn't hear anything about it. So they did this massive ICE surge for 4 days. They were in, they were out, and we don't even know about it until after. You can tell that they've they've changed their tactics quite a bit. But I'm looking at this part. This here got the sirens going off. Listen to this. ICE just went on a 4-day surge in Palm Beach County, Florida, and arrested hundreds of illegal aliens, including a bakery owner. Well, if you are in the country illegally, how do you own a business? In particular, a bakery. How does that operate? How does that work? You've got to have a license. You're dealing with food, right? So there's health inspectors, right? You have people working for you. So not only are there taxes for the business, but there's payroll taxes. So how does someone who's illegal go through all these hoops? And how do they even afford to have a business that they owned? But, the bakery owner, it's really sad how few small mom and pop businesses you have anymore in like the retail space or the bakery space. There's so few. It's not like the old days, for all kinds of reasons, because the big grocery chains, Walmart and all that stuff, they have bakeries inside, but they're not as good. But, this narrative that the liberals have that, these people are just doing jobs Americans don't want to do, that's not true. We hear stories all the time that illegals have all kinds of jobs that a lot of Americans want to do. But it's kind of hard to do them, right? It's kind of hard to do them when they're taken from you. And I don't know where in Palm Beach County this bakery was, but now that the owner of it, who was here illegally, has been arrested, that means that a bakery that's owned by a legal immigrant, maybe somebody that's not a citizen, but they're in the country legally, or get this, maybe a bakery owned by an American, they just lost some competition that was illegally draining business from them. And also, when people are illegal, most often they can operate with a lower overhead, because for a small business owner, what's the largest expense for a small business owner? What do you guys think? Liberals, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You don't understand. I'm using words and things you just don't understand. For a small business owner, particularly a bakery, the largest expense typically is payroll. And, even if somebody has a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, because Dunkin' Donuts are franchises, right? If there's a Dunkin' Donuts nearby, this illegal that's illegally owning this business, he's taking business away from the franchisee from the local Dunkin' Donuts. And if he's illegal, chances are he had illegals working for him, and he can pay them less. And also, if they're illegal and they're paying them under the table, he doesn't have to pay the payroll taxes. Now, I don't know all the details of this particular bakery owner, because none were provided, other than he was in the country illegally and he owned a bakery. So I would imagine that there were a lot of things that were illegal about the bakery, including the other workers there. And if you're a bakery, whether it's an independent bakery or a franchise like a Dunkin' Donuts, and there's a guy in your neighborhood who's illegal and he's hiring illegals, it's hard to compete with someone who has a drastically reduced labor cost, which is your biggest expense. So no, they're not taking jobs Americans don't want to do. And by the way, since when do Americans not want to do these jobs that they're always talking about, right? No, and in Ohio, there's been a big ramp up with the Haitians. This is Fox News.
Right now, ICE planning dramatically to ramp up operations to deport Haitian migrants here in the U.S. This after the U.S. Supreme Court sided with the Trump team, ruling that TPS, known as Temporary Protected Status, is temporary. Federal sources telling Fox that Ohio is heavily targeted. Let's get into that now with Chad Wolf, former acting DA.
Okay, so I was covering this last week. There was a report out of Springfield, Ohio, that 80% of the Haitians have disappeared. They fled. So now ICE is going to go out and look for them. Maybe they should have surrounded Springfield in anticipation of the Supreme Court ruling, and then when the ruling came in, they could have just moved in. And I know that it seems inhumane to a lot of people to do this. I get it. But it's got to be done, because not only are they taking jobs and business away, like this illegal baker I'm talking about, it's also a strain on our system. On top of the fraud, like the Somali pirates of Minneapolis and such, it's a strain on the system. It causes seats to be taken up in schools on top of taking jobs. It causes more cars on the road. You have more people at the local emergency room. Tens of millions of illegals who are here that are being deported as fast as possible by the Trump administration. They not only take jobs, they take up spaces all over in every aspect of the country, and it cost us money and all kinds of other things. Now, and by the way, we're talking about illegal immigrants, not legal immigrants, because even the First Lady is an immigrant. Now, on the morning show today, I was talking about Mamdani attending the 25th anniversary 9/11 ceremony, which is just a few short weeks away. September 11th, it will have been 25 years. It's hard to believe it's been that long. It seems like it was just really yesterday, doesn't it? I mean, where were you when 9/11 happened? I remember everything about it. You do too, right? And I was talking about Mamdani, and I was talking this morning about how I believe it's inappropriate for him to be there. And I'm not alone. The 9/11 families have an online change.org petition gathering signatures against Mamdani showing up. And I think Mamdani attending the 25th anniversary of 9/11 ceremony at Ground Zero is disrespectful to the victims that lost their lives on that day. It's disrespectful to their families. It's disrespectful to New York. And I think it's disrespectful to the people of the United States. 9/11 wasn't some criminal thing. It was an attack on America, like Pearl Harbor, with a greater loss of life than Pearl Harbor. It was an attack on all Americans. And if he were a decent person, he would understand that, but he doesn't. And he's also not an American in his mind and in his heart, and he doesn't understand it. But he gave, he had a press conference today, Mamdani, on the socialist grocery stores, and a reporter asked him about the 9/11 event.
People who are survivors of 9/11 are calling on you not to go to 9/11 memorial services. I wonder how you feel about the fact that they're trying to keep you away.
I will proudly honor the families, the survivors, the first responders forever impacted by that horrific terror attack by standing alongside them at this year's 9/11 commemoration, reaffirming that we will never forget the solemn day felt by all of us who call this city home, and frankly by all of us who call this country home.
Hi, Mayor. I was just wondering if you could also respond to Prime Minister Netanyahu's comment.
Okay, then again, Netanyahu. I mean, come on. Where was Mamdani on 9/11? Was he still in Uganda? I think he was still in Uganda. I really do. And he doesn't have the 9/11 experience. Now, he's a little younger than a lot of people, but he's old enough to remember. If he was really a New Yorker, his 9/11 experience would be different. He would he might have been in school on 9/11, because I think I heard him talk about his 9/11 experience. Now I remember. No, he was here, because I remember. Well, I don't know if he told a story about how difficult it was to be a Muslim student after 9/11. Okay, it's all about you, Mamdani, isn't it? Everything's always about Mamdani. But no, it's just it's in bad taste for him to appear there. Now, I gotta tell you, I right before the program, I went outside and it was thundering, it was lightning, the clouds were coming in, and because it's hurricane season in Florida. And, in the state of Florida, in hurricane, sometimes people call it rainy season because they don't want to scare people with saying it's hurricane season. Rainy season is hurricane season. It rains every day. and it rains hard, and there's strong winds. If you've got a wet spot on your ceiling, you've got a leak in your roof, and you want to call Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing. He'll never sell you a roof you do not need. If you need just a simple repair, he'll do it. And remember, when you've got that wet spot on your ceiling, which is usually the size of a coin, you do have a leak in your roof, but the leak is much worse than what it would appear by the wet spot on your ceiling, because before the water gets to the drywall of your ceiling, it has to go through so many things. Your shingle, your tiles have to be damaged or cracked. Then it has to go through that coating over the wood underneath it, has to be rotted away. Then it's got to soak through the wood itself that's underneath all of that. Then it goes down into your attic and is on top of your insulation and has to drip through the insulation, which is pretty thick, before it hits the ceiling. And when you have a wet spot on your ceiling, if you went up in your attic, chances are you'd find a big puddle of water on the insulation over that spot that just hasn't collapsed yet all the way through. You know, so if you've got that wet spot on your ceiling, you call Tom Laporta. And as I said, he's a good MAGA guy who will never sell you a roof you do not need. He covers both the east and west coast of Florida and everywhere in between. That's right. From the Atlantic coast all the way to the Gulf of America coast of Florida and everywhere in between. This number rings directly to Tom Laporta's cell phone, so you could call or text 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. And you can find him online at laportaroofing.com. The number on the website is the office number, not his cell. So if you want to reach the owner of the company directly, call or text 954-604-4602. I'm Brian Craig. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
Life can leave us with a lot of questions. Why did this happen to me? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? And where is God in all of it? If you've ever asked those questions, you need to tune into the Healing Philosophers podcast with The Healing Philosopher on Spotify. Through honest conversations and real-life experiences, each episode explores topics like healing from past hurts, generational karma, letting go of what's holding you back, understanding narcissism, and discovering how God can use even life's hardest moments for a greater purpose. The Healing Philosophers podcast is about finding hope, growing in your faith, and realizing that your story and every season of your life has meaning. Add the Healing Philosophers podcast to your Spotify playlist, and make sure to share the podcast on all your social media and invite your friends and family to listen in too. Your share could be exactly what someone else needs right now. The Healing Philosophers podcast with the Healing Philosopher on Spotify. Healing starts with one conversation. Listen now on Spotify. Are you looking for a smarter way to care for your skin and your hair? You can do just that with Valaya AI. Valaya AI is your personal AI wellness coach. With just a quick scan from your phone, Valaya AI analyzes your skin and hair in seconds, providing personalized recommendations for acne, hydration, wrinkles, pigmentation, dryness, hair health, and that's just the beginning. Using advanced artificial intelligence, Valaya AI creates customized morning and evening routines, recommends products tailored to your needs, and even adjusts your care based on the weather, UV index, and seasonal conditions. What are you waiting for? Download Valaya AI right now in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store and discover a smarter, more personalized approach to skin and hair care. Learn more and see how Valaya works online at mindhatch.ca. That's mindhatch.ca. Valaya AI, healthy skin and hair powered by artificial intelligence. Some towns never forget, and some ghosts never leave. From author Alex Giles comes your next must-read book, The Ghost of Port St. Joe, a ghost story of the Florida coast. Along Florida's forgotten coast lies Port St. Joe. It's a town where a tragic past refuses to stay buried. When Alex discovers a mysterious gold locket, he awakens spirits trapped for nearly 2 centuries and uncovers a love story that death could never end. If you love Southern Gothic suspense, haunted history, unforgettable characters, and chilling mysteries, The Ghost of Port St. Joe will keep you turning pages late into the night. Order your copy right now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover edition, as well as Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Smashwords, Kobo, and learn more on the author's website, alex-giles.com. The Ghost of Port St. Joe from author Alex Giles. Order your copy today, because sometimes the dead are only waiting to be remembered.
All right, we're back. I'm Brian. Thanks for joining, everyone. If you're new, welcome, and make sure you follow and subscribe. So Mamdani was promoting his communist grocery stores today in New York. And, you know, here's the thing. Nowhere on earth has communism not failed, right? Even places that are still communist, communism has failed. And the idea of communist grocery stores is insane, because where communism is, the grocery stores are empty. And this is something that's always been talked about in conservative capitalist systems and in groups. And I remember when this just popped in my brain. I wasn't going to talk about this. I wasn't even going to reference this. And when I pulled up this clip of Mamdani in his commie grocery store today, I just remember when I was a kid. Any of you remember when President Reagan met Gorbachev in Moscow? Anybody remember this? You know, President Reagan had all these summit meetings with Gorbachev that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. And they had one in Moscow, and they had a meeting, and the president was going, I'm assuming it was from the U.S. Embassy to wherever the meeting was going to be in Moscow, or he was going back to the embassy from the meeting. I was a kid, all right? I was like in middle school when this happened. But Ronald Reagan took an unscheduled stop. He had the Secret Service, without any notice, without anything, just randomly stop at a Russian grocery store in Moscow, and he went in with Nancy and looked at it and talked to the people. Do you guys remember this? And they were all in line, and they had nothing there, right? Just like we've been told. And that was in Moscow, the capital of communism. It was a pretty brilliant move. It was kind of, I wonder if he had anybody scouted out first. I don't know, but it was unscheduled. No one knew. The Russians didn't know, and it was a disaster for the Soviets. So to try to bring communism to America when it's failed everywhere is insane. So this is Mamdani today talking about the commie grocery stores in New York.
More than a century ago, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia witnessed the food riots of 1917, led by immigrant mothers incensed with soaring food prices.
Okay, now before I get in, well, let me just play the whole thing, and then let me just rewind it. I'll play the whole thing, and then I'll talk about it.
More than a century ago, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia witnessed the food riots of 1917, led by immigrant mothers incensed with soaring food prices. Those mothers took to the streets to overturn push carts and eventually called for a boycott of marked up goods. Years later, when he became mayor, he spearheaded the creation of municipally owned markets to reduce the cost of groceries for those same immigrant mothers. He did so because he believed in a simple definition of the task of government: to make people's lives better. Today, we are one step closer to fulfilling that fundamental responsibility.
Okay. The 1917 food riots, which I mean, are you guys familiar with the 1917 food riots of New York? I'm not familiar with that. But you know, these commies, they have another version of history. And it was led by immigrants. Yeah, it tells you, problem. But why would, first off, that comparison to whatever happened, I don't need to know any more about it other than he says there were food riots in 1917. Let me just Google it real quick. But I don't need to know about it. Let me see. New York food riots of 1917. I guess they talk a lot about this in Commie College. This is just a real quick here on Google. The New York City food riots of 1917 were a series of massive protests and uprising, led mostly by working-class immigrant women who targeted soaring wartime food prices, starting in Brooklyn and spreading to the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And of course, that's during the time of the First World War. This is what I need. This is all I need to know about. And I know nothing about it other than it was in 1917. What did they not have in 1917 New York that we have today? That makes that comparison absurd and just stupid. The 1917 food riots. What did they not have that we do have today? Think about it for a second. Don't call me about it. I don't need to take call. It's obvious. But for the liberally impaired in the audience, there was no social welfare. There was no EBT. There were no food stamps. There was no Medicaid. Right? There was no social welfare in 1917. In this day and age, we have a social welfare system that takes care of things like that. Now, the thing about LaGuardia, and he goes on with LaGuardia. Let me play this again so we can get that part. It's only 35 seconds. Listen to him talk sounds like 20 minutes, but it's only, the whole clip is like 38 seconds or something.
More than a century ago, Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia witnessed the food riots of 1917, led by immigrant mothers incensed with soaring food prices. Those mothers took to the streets to overturn push carts and eventually called for a boycott of marked up goods. Years later, when he became mayor, he spearheaded the creation of municipally owned markets to reduce the cost of groceries for those same immigrant mothers.
Okay. It's always about immigrants, isn't it? Even, everything's about immigrants. I did look up about LaGuardia and the markets and read a little bit about that today. What Mamdani is doing has nothing to do with what Mayor LaGuardia, who they named the airport after, did with he didn't set up commie food grocery stores. What he set up are marketplaces. See, back in those days, it's like if you watch Godfather 2, and and Don Corleone's walking around, and you see all the people with the food carts on the sidewalk. What? Yeah. That's an Amber Alert that everybody, I guess, in Florida has gotten on their phone, because this is an Amber Alert from like many counties away. I'm not even sure where this county is in the state of Florida. I heard my wife's phone go off in the other room. Oh, it's the Keys? No, that's not the Keys. Nope. I don't think so, is it? I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, boy. It's an Amber Alert on a child who's been kidnapped. A teenager kidnapped by a 45-year-old creep from Ocala. Oh, boy. What a creep. But what LaGuardia did was set up kind of like shopping centers. He set up places in New York where the food cart vendors could get off the sidewalk and they would go to these areas that were designated for the food carts. And Mamdani's out there trying to tell you that LaGuardia was supporting what he's doing here. Nothing from the truth. Yeah, it's the Ocala area. Anybody in Florida that's listening to me right now, you probably got the same Amber Alert, because Ocala is pretty far from where I live, and I got the Amber Alert. Again. Oh, it's on my other device. I'm getting on my other device. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. They sent out a second one. Oh, my goodness. I wonder, is that guy a father or a creep? That men are on, I don't know. A 45-year-old guy and a 13-year-old girl? Ooh. I don't know if it's a custody dispute or just some creep. Who knows? Ocala. That's right. Ocala, which is really far from here. Anyway, so this is an important point, and the reason I share this with you is to fit into what I was talking about this morning with Mamdani. I got a call. You guys remember I got a call today on the morning show when I was talking about it was inappropriate for Mamdani to go to the 25th anniversary of the 9/11 event, right? And a guy called in and started telling me about all the Muslims that died that day. He said, "Do you know how many Muslims died on 9/11? I said, "Yeah, 19, the hijackers." Remember I told him that? And he says, "No." And he starts telling me the story of a paramedic an EMT with the NYPD that was Muslim, and he died, and he went into the Trade Center to save people, and he didn't make it out. Never heard of this before. But I was telling you that what conquering people do when they're looking to conquer a country or they're overtaking a country, it can be invaders who are occupying a country, or it can be communists. Worldwide, communists have done this when communists have taken over countries. And what they do, what the communists do, is they take the history of the place they're taking it over and they twist it and turn it into their history, right? And I was talking this morning with this caller when he was telling me about all the heroic Muslims of 9/11, that not the hijackers, but in New York, which I'd never heard any of that. I mean, it's that bunch of nonsense. And I had said that and I was really taken aback by it because it was the first time that I had heard what I would call the Islamification of our history. Boy, my phones are just ringing off the hook today. But I'm getting Amber Alerts. I'm getting phone calls. It was the Islamification of the history of 9/11, which we all lived through, right? If you're old enough, like I lived through. And it's more difficult for them to rewrite history that you've lived through and experienced, but that's what they do, right? The communist, Mamdani's got two things, Muslim and communist. And he's rewriting events in New York City. Mayor LaGuardia, who's one of the most well-known mayors by name because of the airport and this food riot thing of 1917, and he's turning that into a communist story. The other day, he was talking about libraries being a socialist thing. No, libraries, the public library was in this country long before socialism and communism was invented. But I found this clip I wanted to share with you. This is Tallarico, this Texas Democrat that's running for the Senate in Texas. Listen to what Tallarico was caught on tape saying.
I know personally that I've learned as much about my faith from Salman's tradition, from the Islamic mystics, from poets.
Hear this? He's learned about Christianity from Islamic mystics. This is Tallarico.
I know personally that I've learned as much about my faith from Salman's tradition, from the Islamic mystics, from poets like Rumi, as much as I have from Christian authors and Christian writers.
Wow. So he's learned as much about Christianity from Muslim mystics as he has from Christians. So what you're really seeing here is a couple of things are going on here, right? One is there's this Islamification of Christianity going on here with in the story of Christianity from Tallarico, which is very anti-Christian because you're actually changing the Bible and everything with that, which is a big no-no. And the Islamification of the events of September 11th in this country with that caller I heard that called me today. And by the way, that caller wasn't bright enough to make that up. He heard that somewhere. It's very scary. And we're seeing these Democrat socialists, which are really communists. Remember, rhinos, Republican in name only, rhinos are really Democrats. Democratic Socialists of America are really communist. Okay? Make no mistake about it. And we are people say gaslighting. Gaslighting is too mild because people hear that and they're like, oh, okay, it's like a joke. We are seeing a rewriting of the American story. This is Rahm Emanuel on CNN, and remember, Rahm Emanuel was Obama's first White House chief of staff, and he was also the Democrat mayor of Chicago years ago. After that, this is Rahm Emanuel on CNN talking about the Democrat Socialist of America.
This is what the president is trying to focus in on when he says things like what he just said about communism. Mm-hmm. Let's watch that clip, and I want to hear what you have to say about it on the other side.
Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that helpful for Democrats trying to win elections?
That can't be a pop quiz question. Of course, no, it's not helpful.
Yeah, I mean, and Rahm Emanuel, you don't hear from him too much. He doesn't seem that important, but he is a big power broker in the Democrat Party establishment. He's probably a super delegate at their convention. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. And this turmoil inside the Democrat Party, while we're benefiting from it, the Democrat Party, if they don't win this, we're in big trouble with these communists that are coming around. Now, if you'd like to support all of my content, whether it's my YouTube channel, my podcast, radio, all of that, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the description on whatever platform you're listening on. And when you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to a lot of exclusive content, including my Patreon-only live streams. And I do live streams on Patreon where I talk about things I cannot talk about here or anywhere else. And those of you that are Patreon supporters already who do watch those live streams, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are things that I cannot talk about here or anywhere else. But you do get to hear me talk about them on the Patreon-only live stream. Now, the link's in the description to my Patreon page. When you go to Patreon, you'll see an option to become a free member. If you become a free member, you don't have access to anything there. You don't even see the content. You have to be a paying member of my Patreon to have access to the content, and it starts at just $5 a month, okay? There's many other perks, benefits, and exclusive content there. The live stream on Patreon is like on YouTube with a live chat that I interact with. It is a troll-free zone. It's a very good community, and I do talk about things. I think that a lot of you are very surprised at some of the things I bring up on that Patreon live stream. I'm pretty surprised myself sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, well. The other day I was live streaming on Patreon, and my wife was here, and I was like, can I tell them about that, or should I? You'll hear me sometimes say, should I tell them that? Should I talk about that thing? And she'll know what I mean, and she'll say, yeah, And then afterwards I'm like, I don't know, should I? But I do. Again, the link's in the description. And if you become a top Patreon supporter, you get a live on-air thank you shout-out on every podcast. And you get your name up on the screen here on YouTube. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SF Jr., Christine, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, Lizep, Shauna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, Rick, Michael, and Robert R. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And make sure you like the video if you've not already done it, or follow and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. I'll see you first thing, bright and early, tomorrow morning. Take care.